Hey everybody, this is just a note to let you know that I'm suffering from a pretty miserable and ugly dermatological condition on my face. I am not going to be my normal sexy self in this episode. I hope you will forgive me for that. And I'm not sure how long I will be saddled with this before the treatment begins to really make it look better. So viewer discretion is advised. Hello, all of my history-loving friends. Welcome back to the world of Madame Morbid. This is a history channel. I cover any number of historic topics, many of which have a darker aspect to them. If you like what you see here, please like the video. Please subscribe to my channel. Today we are finishing the series on Pearl White. This is the 5th episode in that series. Episode 1 covered her childhood in Greenridge, Missouri. Episode 2 covered her teenage years in Springfield, Missouri. Episode 3 covered her life on the road as an actress for various acting companies. Episode 4 covered her rise to stardom, her movie career, and the end of her life. This episode is a special one. It is just about her final visit to Missouri in 1927. Just in case you haven't watched the earlier videos, Pearl White was a massive movie star in the 19-teens. She really hit it big with the Perils of Pauline in 1914, and she came to be known as the Queen of the Serials. Think of it like a television series before there was television. Instead, you had to come back to the theater and watch the next movie in the series. These kind of serials are probably where the term cliffhanger came from. And Pearl, in these movies, sometimes literally was hanging from cliffs. They were all filmed in New Jersey, most of them the Perils of Pauline were anyway. She did mention that an exploding yacht scene was filmed in Florida. As the title suggests, she was always in peril. There were 2 money grubbers, the secretary of her deceased adoptive father, who want her for her money. Because her father, if something happened to Pearl, the money went to the secretary. Yeah, like that's a good idea. So he tries to off her in every episode. There's a neat quote here. Some New York author wrote a few years before this, "There are 2 things responsible for the famous and rich Pearl White of today. They are moving pictures and Pearl White." She was an excellent businesswoman. She was very good at advocating for herself. I don't know that there was such a thing in that day and time as an agent. I think she did all of that for herself, because she made the comment in her autobiography, Just Me, published in 1919, that once her voice recovered, she went into movies for a strained voice to let it recover from her stage work, and planned to go back to the stage initially, but she said she was making so much more money as a movie star, she never went back to the stage, and she said, "Instead, I used my voice to get myself better parts, better pay, better jobs." So she actively was responsible for her success. She was never afraid to seek what she wanted. But Pearl was the highest paid actress of that period. She was making $500,000 a year at one point, and over the course of her 10 to 12 year career, she made $4 million, which is about $34 million today. Pearl was really smart with the $4 million she made throughout her career. She invested it wisely, and it was able to sustain her for the rest of her life. But with money, she decided one of the things she wanted to do with what she had was put a gravestone on her mother's grave. Her mother died when she was about 3 years old in 1891, had been in an unmarked grave ever since. She bought a stone for about $16,000. She was 38 years old during this visit. She'd been retired since 1924, so about 3 years. She had come home specifically for this trip. She had arrived in New York City, and her brother was waiting for her there when she got off the ship. He lived in Buffalo, New York, and it's my understanding that that meeting when she got off the ship was the first time she had seen him or spoken with him since World War I, when she was notified that he had been killed. She says they were corresponding. She thought he was a fan, only to find out later that he was her brother. November 4th and 5th, she went to Greenridge, basically for a family reunion. Her sister Grace, who lived in Fort Smith, Arkansas, came. Her brother was there, her father. She made arrangements for the $16,000 headstone she had made to be placed on her mother's grave. It also had the name of her brother George, who died when he was 20 years old in some accident from playing baseball. It also had the name of an infant sibling she never knew. After Greenridge, they made the journey back to Springfield, where her father was living. He was said to be the collector of Springfield at this time. She stayed at the Kentwood Arms Hotel, and all of the White family was also here for this. So her father waited for her in the lobby of the Kentwood Arms, and she emerged around 1 p.m. She ordered breakfast. She spent time with her family. She stayed one day longer than she originally planned to, because she decided to do a benefit for the College of the Ozarks and for the Red Cross. The benefit was held at the Electric Theater. This is what was the Electric Theater. It's the Fox Theater now. It is owned by the History Museum on the Square now, and they were nice enough to let me inside and show you the theater. And the beautiful interiors of this theater that would have been there the night of her performance are gone. Unfortunately, a fire destroyed the interior and all of the beautiful woodworking and wainscoting that was above the stage and around door frames. What happened, the fire started in a utility shed outside of the theater. Firefighters came and they thought they had put the fire out, but unbeknownst to them, cinders from that fire had gone to the roof, where the roof then caught on fire. Very similar to Notre Dame, what ended up happening is the fire on the roof caused it to collapse into the auditorium of the theater. It destroyed the front part of the stage. You can see here the line where the original stage boards, which Pearl would have stood on, begin. And there's the line and then the replacement boards used on the front of the stage. The part of the stage jutting out was added years and years later by a church that operated in this theater. When the roof caved in and destroyed that part of the stage, it also destroyed all of the decorative woodwork and wainscoting above the stage and around door frames and the like. So it's hard to imagine what it would have been like that night, but I'm sure this theater would have been filled to capacity with people come to see the huge movie star from Springfield. She had not been to Springfield for 17 years. Said she went out on stage and she stood there for a minute to gather her thoughts before she began speaking. It was an informal speech. She also did a little reading from What I Don't Know. It says she wore a gold dress made of cloth with matching gold slippers. The reporter covering the story for the leader said, brother made the comment while watching during the performance through a crack in the scenery, she's so darn nervous she doesn't even know what to do with herself. And when she came off stage, she made the comment, dang, I said things I didn't want to say and I forgot to say the things I did want to say. I guess there was something inherently frightening about a hometown crowd that made her more nervous than usual. Afterwards, she went to her dressing room and the reporter went with her. And he said she puffed on an expensive brand of cigarette and was just talking about her experience. Well, you know, next time I won't be so nervous. And the proceeds went to College of the Ozarks, which was brand new and a very novel idea. She talked about how great of an idea that was for people to be able to work their way through college. The boys, only boys were allowed then, the boys of the school were brought to be in the audience. The funniest part of the article actually is evidently her performance wasn't that great, because he says how proud of their sister, her brother and sister are. The sister wiped away a few tears. What called them forth, one doesn't quite know. It couldn't have been the acting, for it was neither that bad nor that good. Ooh, ouch. But she asked the reporter, she says, "Oh, you're for the leader, right?" And he says yes, and she said, "I used to deliver that paper with my brother sometimes." Fred delivered papers as a young boy to help support the family, so evidently she helped every now and then. As soon as the show was over, she left at 4:45 the next morning to head back to Paris, planned to go on to Egypt and Africa, where she planned to hunt big game. Right now I'm here in Hazelwood Cemetery, where her father is buried. Pearl's father, Edward G. White, buried here under this very plain stone that does not have his name on it. His wife, Inez, Pearl's stepmother, is also buried here. He died 2 years after Pearl did. She died in 1938 of cirrhosis of the liver at 49 years old. He died 2 years later in 1940, according to his death certificate, of senility and just old age. He was 86 years old. I would hope that Pearl's life after movies was a happy one, but I really don't know that much about her life after movies. There isn't an autobiography detailing what happened to her after her career was over. There were rumors that she tried to get back into movies, but that her voice was deemed unsuitable. I find this a little hard to believe given that she was a stage actress. Clearly, it was good enough for stage work. I don't understand why it would have not been good enough for movies, but having never heard a recording of it, who knows? It also could simply be that the studios did not want to deal with an actress with a drug and alcohol problem. Maybe they just made the excuse that her voice wasn't good enough. Probably she was using the drugs and alcohol to self-medicate chronic pain. She had a back injury from a stunt gone wrong during her career that plagued her at the end of her days. And by 1937, she knew she was dying. They knew her liver was failing, and she prepared well ahead of time for her own funeral. She planned her funeral. She bought her plot in Paris and got her affairs in order. Overall, I believe Pearl White was an extraordinary woman. She was an amazing businesswoman. She was fearless not only in being willing to do her own stunts in movies, having no fear of heights or the regular fears of getting hurt that keep most of us from doing that kind of crazy thing. That wasn't an issue for her. She also had no fear of advocating for herself, of getting out there, getting what she wanted out of life, of planning ahead, of being smart with her money, of investing wisely. In Paris, I know she owned a nightclub. She continued to do a little bit of stage work at the end of her life. But for the most part, she just lived out the rest of her life in France. After her days at Pathé, she spoke fluent French, which served her well of living out her life in another country. She just wanted privacy and rest. And despite her physical pain, I hope that she was at least mostly happy. But given that she didn't really leave a whole lot left from that period, we'll never really know. Thank you so much for joining me for this series looking at the life of Pearl White. I think she was an extraordinary woman and very interesting to learn about. And I really hope that you will join me next time. I have several things planned coming up that I think are going to be amazing. I'm going to be looking into the Dalton gang. We're going to get back into some crime and murdery type things, which I think some people will really enjoy. I'd also like to profile a Medal of Honor winner from Missouri who was a hero of the area where I grew up. I'll be doing a story on Elvis, and we'll be covering the murder of the 1910 middleweight boxing champion of the world as well. So lots of really interesting and great stuff coming up. I look forward to seeing you guys next time.